Hey guys, what up? Tominator here. So in this one, we're going to take a look back at the 2019 Chicago Pro that went down last weekend, and I'm really just going to focus my attention on the top two. So that's Michael Lockett moving into the center there alongside Charles Griffin. Those guys went 1 and 2 respectively. So in this front double bicep, I actually prefer Charles Griffin, believe it or not. I know Michael Lockett has a smaller waist. He's got bigger arms, bigger chest, bigger shoulders and all that. So I get it. His outline's probably better. But when we look at body part for body part, I think Charles Griffin has better arms because they're much more defined. You can see that separation there on the inside of his bicep, whereas Lockett's look very, very smooth. I think that Charles Griffin's chest actually presents nicer in this pose, whereas Lockett's has kind of a weird slope to it. And also through the lats, Charles Griffin is much more fleshed out, whereas Lockett has those very high lats, and we'll see that in other poses as well. So I actually prefer Griffin in this pose, so long as he's keeping his midsection in check. And he's doing that here. They make him do it one more time at the end, and there you'll see that he's kind of breathing heavy, and he lets it go, and it just doesn't look good, and it kind of wrecks the pose for him. But in the front lat spread, once again, I actually prefer Charles Griffin, because again, he's filling it out better through the lats. You can see that really large gap between Lockett's arm and his lat on the far side. And yeah, I know this angle's a little off. It's kind of taken to the left, from the left side of the stage. So Griffin's out-angling Lockett, you could say. But for the sake of fairness, I'm going to show a completely separate footage from the other side of the stage where Lockett has the angle advantage at the end. And actually, that's going to cause me to kind of flip my opinion on a couple of these poses. But as for now, I would go with Griffin in the front lat spread. Lockett's front lat spread, he's got better pecs and better shoulders, but the lats are kind of overshadowed. So on the side chest, so Griffin's going to have an advantage again because the camera's closer to him. But I actually prefer his arms more. His chest looks to be a little more striated, but it's kind of flat. Whereas Lockett's definitely is thicker, but not quite as striated. Lockett's shoulder is definitely better than Griffin's, much bigger. But Griffin's arms look like they have a little more pop and roundness to them, especially that far arm. And if anything, Griffin's actually got the edge and the definition of the lower body. You can see more of separation between the glutes and hams. I'd still probably give a slight edge to Lockett because the pecs and the shoulders look better in that shot. Now Griffin's got really good hamstrings, we can see that here, but Lockett's glutes are outrageous once he starts flexing them. And Lockett's got really good calves. Even though they insert a little bit high, they're absolutely massive. You would think that Griffin should win this because he's got better back than Lockett, but I actually would cast my vote for Lockett in this pose because of the wow factor, because of the huge traps and delts and arms, and he's got a better taper than Griffin probably in this one because of the tinier waist. So he's got more wow factor. Griffin's probably more balanced from head to toe, but nothing really jumps out at you in the same way that Michael Lockett does. Lockett in this pose is actually kind of like a poor man's Justin Compton. What do I mean by that? The pose is dominated by his massive shoulders, traps, and arms. Like, the whole upper shelf of his back is tremendous. But when we go to the lower half of his back, there's really not a lot there. And Justin Compton used to be the same way. But I think it's enough for him to beat Griffin here. I mean, he's just got such a size advantage, too. Rear lat spread, though, this has to go to Griffin because he's just much wider, more filled out down there. Better taper, even, despite his wider waist. Lockett's lats are easily underdeveloped. You can note that right there. In the side tricep, from this angle, I actually like Griffin a little bit more. But we'll see when they go to the second footage, it's not the case anymore. But his arms just look a little bit more thick and massive than Lockett's. Ab and thigh, though, is all Michael Lockett because Charles Griffin's midsection is kind of a wreck in this show anyway. It was a little bit bloated and distended. The definition through the abs isn't there. Now with Lockett, though, let me just back it up for one sec. I like him better in pretty much every respect. Like, he's got much more defined abs. Even his thighs are a little bit bigger. But you can note that the pecs, he still has some traces of gyno there. So it's unfortunate. Sean Ray called him out for this. I think it was in the 2017 Mr. Olympia, where he was sporting some really awful gyno, and he had to go get surgery to have it removed. But unfortunately, it looks like they didn't clean it up 100%. So it's a minor blemish. It's not nearly as bad as it used to be, thank God, but it's still a flaw. Most muscular, you would think Lockett should win this, but I actually prefer Charles Griffin because I think his execution is better. Lockett's like just kind of almost going through the motions on this one, it seems. Like he's hitting the hands clasped and the crab, and he's basically executing both the exact same way. Almost looks like he's half-assing it to me. I think he could do better with what he's got, because he's got the size through the arms and the delts and the chest that he should look more impressive than this. So I think Griffin's doing more with what he has. He's getting more animated and really getting into the pose more. Now here they're going to make him repeat the front double bicep, and now that Griffin's kind of winded a little bit, he's breathing more heavily and the stomach's coming out, and I think that for that reason, Lockett takes that one. Okay, but now I'll take a look at the second footage. Okay guys, so here's the second angle that we're going to take a look at, and as you can tell, it's from the right side of the stage this time, so now Lockett's got the advantage because he's a little closer to the camera. Still in this front double in the first one anyway, I think that Charles Griffin just shows a little more definition through the upper body, most notably through the arms. And I just think that pose works a little bit better with his structure. Front lat spread, I would still be inclined to go with Griffin on this one because of the better lats. Lockett looks very lean and underdeveloped here in that area from this angle as well. You can note the quality's not quite as good in this clip as it was in the first one. Yeah, I'd probably give a slight edge to Lockett in this one just because I like his chest a little bit more, and that's the focal point of the pose, but it was very close, kind of a toss-up. Okay, so back double bicep once again. I don't think my opinion's going to change on this one. Like, obviously Lockett's out angling him because he's in front of him, but you can still tell that he's just got a definite size advantage, and I think he's got more wow factor in that one, so I'd go with him. Not too much is changing, actually, until we get to the side tricep. I think all my picks are pretty much staying the same. Again, Griffin, although he looks a little bit over-oiled. Lockett has better definition down the center of his back, but I think that the rear lat spread is more about the taper and the width. So now Griffin in the side tricep looks very kind of awkward the way he's hunched over there. Even though his arm looks a little thicker, Lockett's presenting better. He looks a lot more comfortable, a lot more aesthetic, especially with the tight midsection. So I would definitely give Lockett the side tricep based on this vantage point. Ab and thigh, same thing. It's a no-brainer. Michael Lockett. Let's see if the most muscular changes here. I still like Griffin more in that hands clasp. In the crab, though, probably go with Lockett just because Griffin looks a little bit small and narrow. Lockett's definitely got more width upstairs across the collarbones. So structurally, Lockett's a little bit more genetically gifted. Yeah, and in this front double, once again, you can note the heavy breathing on Charles Griffin's part. That midsection's very bloated, so definitely go with Lockett. If Griffin can keep his midsection in check, I give him the front double, but when he's not like that, I go with Lockett. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to show a couple of side-by-side picture comparisons because I think that the angle is better, the lighting is better, the quality is better. We can catch finer details, and it's more head-on, so it's probably a more accurate comparison here. So now in the front double biceps, you can see that Lockett's definitely got an advantage structurally. He's much wider upstairs, better taper, even though the lats are underdeveloped and they have kind of a funky shape to them. He definitely catches your eye more. Griffin's probably got better muscle bellies, especially through the biceps. I think his chest sits a lot better in this pose compared to Lockett's, which, like I mentioned, has an odd slope to it. And even his legs, I probably prefer over Lockett's. Lockett's like, he's got real genetic gifts. He's got some great body parts, but they're just kind of, they don't flow that well together. Like his calves, for instance, look a little funky because they have very high insertions, but they're massive. The legs look a little bit off in terms of the shape. Not that Charles Griffin's legs are great either. Neither one of these guys has a great set of quads. Now, Charles Griffin, where he really suffers is through the midsection. You can see that right here. Lockett's much tighter. I think Lockett actually looks a lot better here than he did in the video, and I'd be tempted to go with him just for the wow factor in terms of, you know, the shoulder to waist ratio, those massive arms. Even though they're not as well defined as Griffin's, it just catches your eye more for sure. So this one's close. I could see it going either way, depending on your point of view. In the front lat spread, I actually prefer Lockett now based on this angle. Okay, so even though the lats still look a little bit small and the pose is kind of being dominated by his shoulders and chest, he's bigger than Griffin, and I think your eyes are drawn to him. Griffin's lats are definitely a little bit better, but his chest and shoulders look very weak compared to Lockett's. Even his arms look pretty small. So I'd probably be tempted to go with Lockett on this one, but again, you can certainly make an argument for Griffin on the grounds of, this is the front lat spread, the lats should count for more, and he looks a little bit more balanced, whereas Lockett has kind of obvious weak points. The lats need to come up a lot. And finally, in the side chest, this kind of seals the deal for me. I would go with Lockett. Not a huge margin of victory, but I would give him an advantage for sure, because those delts are just enormous. They're dwarfing Griffin's. And like I said in the video, I think that his chest is thicker, whereas Griffin's is more striated, but it looks very flat. The legs look pretty comparable on both these guys. No one really is knocking it out of the park conditioning-wise, but they both look solid. And that's pretty much what I wanted to establish here in this video, is I think that this contest, even though Lockett won unanimously with perfect scores, I think that this contest was actually pretty close. Like, Griffin definitely gave him a run for his money. And I think if Griffin had been able to come in with a tighter midsection with better abs, that he could have easily prevailed here. So I've seen a lot of comments saying that Lockett just was blowing him out of the water, that it was a decisive victory. And I'm not so sure about that. I think this one was actually a very close fought contest. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Until next time, this has been the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.